This ain't no audiobook. This ain't a radio play. This is a Happy Cloud AudioToon. It's that time again for the Further Adventures of Rune, Return of the Miggins, brought to you by Happy Cloud Media and Chrome Toothpaste. Chapter 38. 5 minutes later, still in balls deep. Rune ordered the army to do an about-face, and weasel-faced Grimfoyle, Lord Morphin, whoever, was surrounded. As none of those present had been paid a single bit, yuck, or ballyhoo, their loyalty had already been shaky. At least the betrayal broke up the boredom. His arrest and imprisonment in Balls Deep was met with both cheers and curses, though the curses came mostly from the Redcaps, because, of course they would. Outside the walls of Balls Deep, the Redcaps had managed to roll a catapult down the narrow path to the forward bridge, but in their rage, they refused to learn how to make the thing work. Neither had they remembered to bring ammunition. Into the basket went one quarrelsome redcap after another, and shot screaming into the walls. The keep doors were disgusting, the splattered remains of countless redcaps, and yet they were in no danger of depleting their numbers. What am I doing? Meanwhile, Grimfoyle was in a cell and would remain there until he faced an Azternath tribunal and answer for his war crimes, attempted and otherwise. His honor guards had been dismissed. None would stand by him to face the chop themselves. Within the thick iron latticework of his cell, things were looking grim for Grimfoyle, and Rune had come to gloat. There had been much celebrating within the keep. Defeating an army without a single life lost, it was decided that the four on the hill didn't count, was a feat worthy of the history books. Word of Rune's victory, too, spread twice as loudly and 4 times as quickly. Of the thousands of citizens within the walls, roughly half of them had that very day bought the Grey March drinks. It took him 2 tries to find the dungeon, 3 to navigate the doorway, but finally he managed to stumble down the stairs and stood grinning before Grimfoyle. "Sup, Weaselface? You knew we caught you that, right? Everybody in high dungeon." "Hi." He took another glug from the cask he'd been given. Or taken. Regardless, he had a whole cask. Amontillado, if he weren't mistaken. "Ah, Amontillado. I was aware," came Grimfoyle's icy reply. It was galling. Despite all his magnificent power, both learned and stolen, for the 3rd time he'd failed to take over the world. Cosmic mysteries were at his fingertips. The ability to manipulate the dead. The might to tear entire continents asunder with the use of a complicated machine, long since destroyed, of course. And he was brought down, all 3 times, with the help of the besotted, ill-tempered, flea-bitten wolf morph before him. How was it possible? How could something so insignificant destroy him so utterly, let alone 3 blurging times? To be honest, this was the first defeat he'd suffered at Rune's hands directly. Still, it was sickening. "Come to mock me, have you?" "Yippers," said Rune, dropping tail first onto a stool. He offered the cask to Grimfoyle, only to yank it back when the necromancer reached for it. "Too slow." Grimfoyle glowered down at the wolf then. Resigned, he too sat down upon his bunk with a weary sigh. "How did you know?" "Didn't," Rune replied, wiping his muzzle on the back of his paw. "Just felt like something was off this whole time, and I was right. Just didn't know it was you. Thought it was Mingmumble." "Mingmumble of the several noses? That con artist." "Con artist? Phew." Rune reeled a bit on his stool, then regained his composure. "Watched that guy do countless magics." "Sure you have." "Watched him whip a tablecloth away once, and the flowers was still standing. Magic." Rune spread his hands to settle the argument. "Fool. Which one of us is in jail, Grimmy? Ignoramus." Grimfoyle stood and opened his tunic. On a chain around his neck hung a single nose, electroplated silver. "I killed Mingmumble. He came to the Zeit seeking more power. Instead, I took his power for my own. I seized everything, including the Arklestone. I awoke the Well of Aragonian." Rune gaped at the nose, then glared up at the wizard. "Where are the other ones?" The other what?" "Noses." "Oh, I only wanted the one. Who wants a necklace of noses? That's just weird. You're weird." Rune leveled a finger at Grimfoyle, or in Grimfoyle's general direction. "You keep trying to ruin the world. I am trying to remake it. Legs, me. Oh man, I am gonna enjoy watching your execution. I'm a necromancer, White Fang. Would you even know how to kill me?" "Nope." "That's why we're gonna try a whole bunch of things." He winked at the man behind the bars. "We'll figure it out." Draining the last of the keg, Rune let it drop and roll around the room. He stood, stretched, and gave Grimfoyle a last smug grin, which the wizard didn't appreciate. "Do you know why I chose you for this?" "Yep. You thought I was stupid." "Partially. I knew you were a leader. I misjudged how mercenary you are. Thought I'd go along with them for the money, huh? Isn't that what scruffy little insurrectionists from the slums all desire? Look at you now, besotted and drenched in hubris. Rune examined the stains on his leather armor. This is below, I think. He shook his head. His ears felt droopy, which meant he would pass out soon, and he didn't want to do that there. Anyway, if I were you, I wouldn't be the guy accusing the other guy of the other guy's hubris. He more or less leveled a finger at the defeated wizard, winking at the one in the middle. I beat you 3 times, he said, holding up 4 fingers. And I never once knew I was fighting you. Imagine what I could have done to you if I did. No, it were you. Schmoocock. I'll be out of this cell soon enough. Rune gave him a thumbs up, and Grimfoyle recoiled in inference. Let's put a yuck on it. Schadenfreude satisfied, he turned his tail on the grumbling prisoner and managed to stumble back up the stairs with far less loss of dignity than one would expect. The next morning was far too bright. Someone should be killed for it. But everyone talked far too loud to determine whom. If all the smells that weren't coffee could just go away for an hour or two, Rune could stop dry heaving and rejoin the living. Slumped across a bench in the courtyard, Rune was joined by the rest of his Miggins. Scarlet, Dusty, Circe, and the Gax, and all had brought him coffee. Throwing the first cup back like a shot, Rune felt a bit of his old self return, and he was able to start the emergency, just-in-case, war council. I don't know how he's gonna do it yet, Rune said after telling them of what he remembered of his conversation with Grimfoyle, but he's gonna escape. He'll make the attempt, but we'll be there to thwart him. What ho! Volume, Dusty, said Rune, holding both halves of his skull together. Gex, where are we? Well, boss, doesn't look good. Rune threw back his second cup. It sanded down some of the edges of his anxiety. Go on. The Gax sighed. Since the necromancer was our patron and not our opponent, that qualifies as a second act twist. But not a final conflict? Well, he's gonna escape. Third cup down, Rune could finally feel his ears and tail again. So we need to be ready, because I'm betting the Balls Deepians won't be. Circe agreed.
They've grown complacent behind their impenetrable walls. They would nary expect a threat from within.
Bring it down a notch, Lily Langtree. Circe flashed her a thumbs up. Scarlet knew what she meant. We have to be prepared for anything. Dusty, keep an eye out for any passages large enough to accommodate redcaps. Scarlet, be ready in case any of those creeps actually make it over the wall. And Landon shaping off to fight. I don't want to leave anything to chance. Circe, if he raises some zombies, is that something you can take care of?
Zombies? Don't insult me.
Yes, that's a yes. Gax, keep Tallulah on you at all times. I never got nose grinder back from the anger hold, so I need to make a trip to the armory, and they don't open till 10. As long as I have breath in me, Grimfoyle is not leaving Balls Deep. He's been set free, said Beryl, walking up behind them. And I'll be damned if I— Wait, what? The news was so ludicrous. Rune's brain translated it as a shopping list. You bought a settee? Grimfoyle! His lawyer showed up with a writ of release. Lawyer? Rune stood, rage returning. What? Lawyer? What? Why? Because my client is the sovereign ruler of Neezentoes, said a disgustingly familiar voice, and cannot be tried outside the borders of that city-state. Rune's heart dropped, as did the faces of the others at the table, save Dusty, who sprang to his feet to seize and pump the hand of the new arrival. Charlatan, old chap, what brings you to Balls Deep? Rune's jaws had locked in a bared teeth display of impotent fury. He represents Grimfoyle. Charlatan waved off the implied shame with the folders in his hand. I represent everybody. You're employed by a war criminal, said Scarlet, rising angrily to her feet. What exactly does that make you guys? Her ruby upper lip curled into a sneer. Oh, that's low, even for a lawyer. The dragon shrugged. He returned the folders to his briefcase, but instead of grinning his normal dung-eating smile, his face remained stoic as he looked from one of his clients to the other. Grimfoyle's already on his way with an escort to Eisennose Tower. He's agreed to stay out of Astonath. What about the Redcaps? I don't represent Redcaps. Circe, who had no skin in this particular game, did have a question.
I thought you represented everybody.
Even I have standards. He smiled a tight smile at them in return. Gentle Miggins, I bid you good day. But should you need me, you know how to reach my doom marble. With that, and a flourish of his tail, Charlatan's chagrin too left Balls Deep. Rune was so silent, his Miggins feared for their safety. He sat rooted to the spot, staring at the gates closing behind Charlatan Chagrin, Esquire, who just freed a powerful enemy of Trogdine on a technicality. Cautiously, and avoiding his mouth, Circe put a hand on Rune's shoulder.
Beloved?
Slowly, Rune inhaled through his nose and held his breath. Nobody thought to count, but it was almost a full minute before he finally exhaled. Okay, he said, nodding but still staring a hole through the massive gates. This This is what happens when I try a non-violent solution. Complicated emotions churned through him before settling on righteous and murderous rage. He saw that the courtyard was teeming with aghast witnesses. His army of blurg servants and Snevians stood mouths agape, having heard of their enemy's departure, only having just processed how they'd all been duped. It had been one serious ego blow after the other, and Sergeant R.C. Swill in particular was taking it hard. So, too, were the wooden faces of the Succu Dryads, frozen in disgust, fangs bared but without the normal joy. Lenny the Bruce and the many cow clansmen had joined in the festivities the previous night, and they too looked appalled, the cows especially. Rune attempted to clear his throat, but the fury had taken up permanent residence as an iron ball behind his epiglottis. He stood to address the crowd, but unaccustomed as he was to public speaking, he only said what he had to say. Look, I get it! You schlepped all the way here thinking you were some part of a noble war, right? Yeah, I was just as dumb as the rest of you. So here's the deal. Rune climbed onto the table. I'm gonna take a day or two off and recover from the trip. You all rest up, drink up, do whatever you have to do. Cause then I'm gonna buy up as many weapons as I can, and I'm sailing them upriver to knees and toes. And then I'm gonna find Weaselface, and I'm gonna chop him in the croutons. Anyone wants to come with me? Meet me here on Thorns Day. He flashed them a thumbs up. Double thumbs up. Let's go commit murder. The crowd cheered. Seriously, they went insane. They threw anything they could find into the air. Confetti, peanut shells, livestock, Connie's newborn, everything. They screamed, they cried, they pledged undying allegiance to Rune the Grey, March of Roval, hero of Blackadder Bay. Everybody.
Thus concludes this episode of the Further Adventures of Rune. Tune in next week via your favorite audio delivery system.
Don't forget, full episodes and super mega chunks are available on Patreon. But you knew that already.